On this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
This week on the Life Science Success Podcast, my guest is Yan Leyfman. Yan is a unique individual in life sciences and is someone we all need to be paying attention to. Yan was raised in the medically deprived community that was ravaged by the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. Today, we're going to talk about his experience with Chernobyl, how that led to his career in medicine, and what he has done to turn the struggles into triumphs. Welcome, Yan.
Thank you so much. It's truly a pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much. Can you tell the audience just a little bit about yourself?
So I am one of the few survivors of the after effects of Chernobyl from the largest hospital in the Soviet Union. I'm grateful to be alive, and I live every day like it's my last. That is why I started research at the age of 15 to give back. I'm fortunate to say that I contributed to 2 promising anti-cancer therapies currently in clinical trials and potentially new treatment guidelines of care for a rare disease. When the COVID-19 pandemic occurred, I was recruited to join the Global COVID-19 Task Force as director of the Immunology Division. Our team contributed to one of the first mechanisms of COVID-19 that is still valid today. We were amongst the first internationally to explain the efficacy of a promising therapy against severe COVID-19 and were proven correct when one of the companies within the space demonstrated promising clinical trial data and received US FDA Fast Track designation on December 1st, 2020, a week before the vaccines. At the 2020 ASCO meeting, I'll be presenting the next chapter of this with one of the first mechanisms to showcase the interplay between cancer and COVID-19 with support from clinical data and a promising therapeutic intervention.
How exciting. It's interesting to me that to think that you're more or less at the start of your career and you've had such a dramatic, big impact overall in the industry and as well for starting to touch lives at this early stage.
Thank you so much. That is one of the passions that I have. I live every day like it's my last. And I feel that I was put on this planet for a reason. And my parents taught me from a very young age to turn every negative into a positive and use every experience, whether good or bad, as an opportunity for self-growth. And that's what I strive to do on a daily basis.
Yeah, I know one of the things that's available as a streaming movie right now is a kind of a movie about Chernobyl to maybe inform some of us that were outside of it. But I frankly couldn't watch it. I started watching it and it was too tough for me to carry on and continue to watch. But you're the first person that I've ever talked to that survived it. And I'm just curious, how old were you at the time that this happened? And then what do you remember?
So Chernobyl happened in 86. I was born in 89. I developed relatively early, and by the time I was 1, I already was speaking and walking as well. But growing up in an area where surrounded by the after effects of Chernobyl, where radiation is everywhere, and when one is born, their immune system is obviously not fully developed. I began to develop symptoms at about the age of 2. And since that time, life was really never the same. Daily life where I was born included receiving rations of radioactive chicken bones because all the food was irradiated. Hospitals were poorly equipped to handle the influx of patients, and physicians were ill-prepared to manage this medical catastrophe. I'm very grateful that my parents saved me from all of this as they connected me with life-saving medical care abroad. The medical staff's warm and proficient care not only saved me, but it led me to find purpose and a profound appreciation for internal medicine that's continued to resonate throughout my medical training. And
Yes, I read in one of the articles about you as well that you had cysts, that you lost fingernails, you had swollen limbs, you had skin that itched, which I could only imagine trying to manage 3 or 4 year olds with those sort of things going on. Your parents definitely are strong people as well.
I feel that strength runs in the family. And Chernobyl was my first pandemic, and it taught me strength. It taught me the importance of never giving up, and also taught me the importance of advocacy. And I'm very grateful, looking back, that I am able to take the positive lessons from that catastrophe. But most of all, I'm grateful to be alive.
Yeah, and given some of the impact that you've had already, we're lucky that you survived as well.
Thank
So
you.
what led you to being in medicine? What made you want to then move forward in your life to wanting to be a doctor?
So I feel that my life's journey has afforded me a unique understanding of what it's like to be a patient. I'll never forget the team that saved me as a child and the great care that they showed me. And that really set the ball in motion for a career in medicine. And that was further solidified when I began to do research at the age of 15. I engaged in translational research projects, and being with patients has always been a joy, especially helping them through their most difficult of times. And I will never forget my oncology rotation in medical school, as it's one of the epitomes of patient-centered care, especially with personalized targeted therapies. And that really reaffirmed that medicine is where I truly want to be. I'm very blessed for the research innovations that I've been able to contribute to. But at the end of the day, I feel that I want to do the same in the medical field as I progress through my training and can be a strong advocate for patients, because I'll never forget what it's like to be one myself.
And so if from that, I know one of the people that I interviewed not too long ago, Deborah Barton, she happened to talk about her journey through patient care and this idea that through helping with treatments and working in the lab, she actually feels like she could be more impactful. Where do you really feel, since you're both contributing on the research side, but also have this experience as a patient, where do you feel that you most want to wind up in your career?
So I know that I want to finish my clinical training because I feel that it will help me to see the global landscape best. Being able to say that I've finished an internal medicine residency, then hopefully pursuing oncology, will give me a global view and allow me to fill any niche that's needed. I'm grateful for the research background that I have and the breadth and width that I was able to contribute to. I can contribute on a wide spectrum, whether it's basic science, translational science, and most recently, clinical research and clinical trials. And I feel that it's too premature at this stage of my development to really put a stamp and say, this is where I'm going to end up. And the reason being that if you look back maybe a decade ago, CAR T cell therapy was not really a thing. No one knew few people were using immunotherapies. And now it has literally flipped the field on its head. And so the one thing that I did learn from one of my PIs, who was actually one of the fathers of CAR T cell therapy, is appreciate every single day, learn from every opportunity, and learn the technology, but be versatile enough to apply it in novel ways. And I take that advice to heart each and every single day. And so I don't want to pigeonhole myself to a field at this point in time. I want to see where the field is going and hopefully ride the wave of innovation.
Yeah, great. And as I understand it as well, your mom has had cancer as well.
Yes. Chernobyl continues to be like a dark cloud over our family. And because of that, we feel that was one of the contributing factors. It was a very difficult time. I was finishing up my first year of undergraduate, and then sadly, my mom had this diagnosis. It was before the Affordable Care Act, and because of that, initially, my mom was dropped by her insurance, and then at some point was dropped by her provider. And there was a point in time where she was not getting any treatment. And despite me being an undergrad, focused on my education, I also had to be the healthcare proxy for the family. My dad was a sole breadwinner at the time, and I had to be my mom's patient navigator. I had to be her advocate. But I also couldn't just sit on the sidelines and watch what was happening to her. I wanted to take a more active role. And so I found solace in research because I felt like I was doing something. I felt like I was innovating. And I felt like if anything were to happen, I could at least look at myself in the mirror and know that I tried my best. Thankfully, she was saved by standard therapies. She got in with a great physician. And I'm very fortunate that I took some time during my time in medical school where I got to work with the team that saved my mom. And that was one of the most priceless encounters that I can truly imagine. I grew so much during that time, and it was truly a blessing.
It's a very touching story as well. That one, I think as we have somebody that does get cancer, the first question that a lot of us would ask ourselves is, what can we do? How can we help? And sometimes it is being that patient advocate. Other times it's just being there as well as they go through whatever it is that's going to happen. There are great therapies that are out there today, but you never know. And thankfully for your mom, it sounds like it's wound up in a very good place. So it's great.
Thank you. We're very happy to.
So you have quite a few things going on, and you started to mention this as well, the fact that you're presenting on June 4th at the American Society of Clinical Oncology. Can you describe some of the things that you're currently working on?
Sure. So I'm a co-investigator on a clinical trial studying the efficacy of the COVID vaccines in cancer patients, and have been doing that since the beginning of the year. I'm helping with all phases of the trial, from protocol writing to data analysis. As we know, cancer patients were not prioritized for the vaccines, and they remain a vulnerable population for COVID. And so it's important to truly understand the immunology and how effective the vaccines are in that unique patient population. Additionally, I'm working with a diverse patient population in a primary care clinic in my local community, some of whom are COVID-19 positive and vaccine hesitant. And so I'm using my background to help educate them about COVID-19 and the importance of vaccination. Also, to reach a global audience, I host a show on Clubhouse called COVID Update with a multidisciplinary panel. Earlier this year, I joined IJCR Central, which is a rapidly growing international research journal with indexing in Web of Science and PubMed, and was named as a section editor for oncology and immunology. The journal itself reaches over 300,000 individuals internationally in 90 countries and growing daily. I developed an international webinar series called Pioneers in Medicine that launched in April 2021 and features presentations by international medical leaders within their respective fields. Our first speaker was Dr. Bruce Chazen, one of lymphoma's great pioneers. I'm fortunate to have a passionate, dedicated, and hardworking team to make these events a reality. I'm also very passionate about mentorship, and that's another area in which I'm very active with IJCR. We want to educate students across the world about the art of research and arm them with the necessary skills and knowledge to be future leaders in the field. I'm also tutoring students from developing countries in English, communication, and writing. I aspire to help them reach their individual goals and improve their comprehension, speaking, and writing skills.
When do you sleep?
That's a good question. As they say, with great versatility comes great responsibility. But I'm very passionate about these things. And there's more than one dimension to me And as I said to you, I live every day like it's my last. I appreciate the life that I've been given, but I also know that there are other people who are more or less fortunate than me. And if I can make a positive difference in their life, there's nothing more rewarding than that.
Yeah, and I also saw, I know that you just mentioned a bit of this a second ago, that you host a panel that is focused on COVID-19, but I also saw a webinar that you hosted more or less. It seemed to be much more public focused on trying to talk to the public about the vaccines and what's happening overall with COVID-19 treatments as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So that was an event hosted by NSHSS, which is the National Society of High School Scholars. The goal of that event was to host a multidisciplinary panel where the audience's questions could be answered. I was honored to moderate that session, and we had a very diverse group of individuals who answered questions not only about the basic science elements of COVID, about vaccines, what the future will look like, policy, etc., etc. And we had a very good turnout, and we had some very interesting questions, and we were happy that we were able to provide answers to them and clarify any misconceptions that the audience had.
Yeah, and it definitely is an important topic right now, especially with vaccines and vaccine treatments and things of the like, right? Just making sure that the public's aware of overall what's going on and what they should and shouldn't consider as they think about any form of treatment for themselves. Whenever I think about your topic for the American Society of Clinical Oncology, I also think about how are cancer patients specifically impacted by COVID and COVID treatment? And is there any research currently going on that focuses on the impact or efficacy of things like vaccines for cancer patients?
I can only speak about what our group is doing with regards to the clinical trial that I spoke about earlier. I know that there are other groups out there doing similar studies as a whole. Obviously, in a single institutional study, one can only galvanize so much. As they say, teamwork makes the dream work. So I feel that eventually collaborations will have to be made, or clinical studies will have to be expanded in order to get a breadth of understanding. Additionally, there's a very diverse patient population from one state to one city to one country, and those have to be taken into account as well. Cancer is a very heterogeneous disease, and that is why personalized medicine and targeted therapies are very important and are getting more prominence with time, because that is where I feel the future will be.
Yeah, that's a great lead in for my next question for you is, where do you see the future of oncology? I like to ask this question of people that are involved in the space, just because certainly I see things like you mentioned with CAR T cell therapy or other therapies that are more targeted and personalized for the cancer that the individual has. I also, though, see things like the possibility of CRISPR maybe someday impacting and being a benefit for oncology as well. And so I'm just curious to hear where you think the space is heading.
So I feel that allogeneic and off-the-shelf products are where the future is at. Having taken care of CAR T cell patients personally, and sadly having to lose several along the way because their disease was too advanced, where they were candidates for the therapy by the time it arrived, or because it took too long for that therapy to arrive, or something in between. It's important that we are able to adjust and decrease the production time of getting these therapies to the hands of patients. And I feel that allogeneics solve that issue. I realize that at this point in time, we are still slightly premature. They're still in the beginning of their clinical trials, and so it'll probably take a few years. But they offer a very promising approach. The clinical data thus far has been promising, and I'm looking forward to following it. But I feel that in the future, combination therapies will be the key, especially for solid tumors, because we need to get past the microenvironment while also addressing the unique genetic profile of every patient. And so personalized medicine and personalized therapies will gain greater prominence within that arena.
Yeah, just to make sure that I break this down a little bit. So my understanding is the supply chain for CAR T cell therapies is that they extract your blood and then they send it off to extract to build more or less the CAR portion onto the T cells. And then this is not a very fast process as far as I understand it. And there are only a few places in the world that actually do that work. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct. And now that you bring up the world, one of the key things that is also important is accessibility. Even looking across the US, normally community hospitals don't really offer that therapy, and you have to go to a big academic center. And if one is living in a rural area, the commute is very difficult. And the other issue with current therapies in the market is their expense. Although they are effective and although they do provide hope, we also need to address the price. And there's hope that with allogeneic and off-the-shelf therapies, the price can come down and make those therapies more affordable to patients. In other countries, depending which ones, there are not always facilities that are built to develop these therapies on site. And so maybe the wait time is much longer. But similar issues as in the United States, the patients who are sick, they are sick and they need the therapy soon. And so accessibility and cost are things that have to be addressed.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard hundreds of thousands of dollars per treatment is one price that has been quoted to me. I certainly don't know of anybody that's getting these therapies, but that is just a lot of money for any one individual, especially for one single dose of a particular therapy. I certainly agree with you on the price. I certainly don't know the ins and outs of all of it, but at the same time, the cost of your life is something that everybody is more or less challenged with regards to this therapy at this current time. So there are 3 questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you, Yan?
I'm inspired to help people. And I know that may sound cliche, but I never forget where I came from. And so looking back, I know what it's like to be a patient. I know what it's like to wake up every day with a condition that you don't really have a diagnosis for. I know what it's like to feel hopeless. And I feel that never forgetting what it's like to be a patient, I'm inspired to become the best physician that I can be. I'm also inspired every single day to push myself to new heights in the research arena and help to promote innovation, help to pioneer novel therapies, because our patients, they deserve it. And seeing what happened to my mom, I'm very blessed that she's alive. I'm very blessed that she was one of the cardinal people who saved me as a child. I'm inspired by stories like hers, stories of triumph, stories of overcoming. But most importantly, I just want to leave a positive mark on this world and contribute to the innovation of novel therapies while also being the best person and physician that I can be.
That's great. And what concerns you?
Regarding what?
What concerns you with regards to, I guess it could be life sciences, or it could be with regards to the world, or even the way that people think about science in general?
I feel that the one of the few benefits of COVID was it promoted interdisciplinary collaborations that I feel maybe in the past had not existed. It procured innovation, and that innovation I feel will lead to novel therapies in the next 5 to 10 years that maybe would have taken a longer period of time. I feel that collaboration is the key. And in order to achieve success and innovation, we need to be doing more of that. Not only within an institution, not only within a state, not only within a country, but across the world. There's so much talent out there. And being an IJCR and being able to mentor these individuals, I see it firsthand. And so it's important for me to give back. I'm grateful for the success that I've achieved, but I also want for other people to achieve their own version of success and be future leaders in the field, contribute to innovation, and pioneer novel therapies.
And what excites you?
Innovation. I am blown away by the consistent innovation that I see within the biotech industry, how much things have evolved. It was an honor for me to be trained by one of the fathers of CAR T-cell therapy and to be able to see that therapy in clinical trials while I was in the lab, contributing to the next generation of that therapy, and then seeing it receive FDA approval. That was just magical. And that excitement, that passion, that is what drives me. And I want to be able to do similar things in the future. I want to be able to innovate. I'm not sure how. We'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. But I want to be able to pioneer novel therapies for my patients because that's what they deserve.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great vision for yourself for the future, but also linking yourself as well to that creativity. It's one of the things that makes me wake up in the morning excited to be in this space. I love hearing all the stories that people have that led them, one, to be in the space, but also to do the things that they do. And whenever you hear about the creative ways that people are solving problems that people are having, it's just amazing to me as well. So with that, Yan Leyfman, I wanted to thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today. Thanks so much for spending time with me and for answering all my questions. And I wish you all the best of luck in your future.
Thank you so much. It was truly a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it. And last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.